Okay, conversation as a pedagogy. We're climbing the layers. The first one was curation. The next pedagogy is the pedagogy of conversation. So I think I may have mentioned this before, but it's really interesting to see how education has evolved at a sort of very meta level. Olden days, before any of us were born, it was learning through a Socratic type style. You couldn't write things down unless you had a chisel or you could afford it. So how did we learn? We had discussions. You'd have some clever person, you'd all sit around and you have a big debate. And that was how it happened. Then along came our friend Gutenberg. He invented the printing press, and it's not just him, but him and his mates. And we changed from Socratic to didactic. We changed to stand and deliver, to regurgitate, to reproduce. And so we ended up in this area where we sit today, where not much has changed. That classroom looks much the same as our classrooms today. And then there was another big invention, people like Tim Berners-Lee and others, the internet and the World Wide Web. And all of a sudden, a new era was upon us, what I refer to as Socratic 2.0. It's the social media era. It's the era where we share everything, talk about everything. With all its issues, it's changed how we connect. And so now we are here again, but most of our teaching sits up there still. And core to social media is conversation. It's social. And so conversation as a pedagogy is extremely powerful. You watch the kids in the lectures. If they're not listening to you, they're probably chatting to someone. So if you can get them to use those same phones to be talking to you, it's fantastic. Because even though they've only got two thumbs, they've only got one phone. And so it invariably ends up being talking to you now. Right. When we come to conversation, they can be arranged into different types. Specifically, I'm talking in terms of online conversation. And so this little matrix shows you that. So what is the level of control of the conversation? Is it loose or is it a tightly controlled conversation? And the content. Is the content very closed or is the content open? Go for it. There's a topic, but anyway, just go for it. And as a result of that, you can end up what I refer to as seeded, scripted, supervised, or spontaneous conversations. And I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll just try one of those now in a moment. Who can suggest to me some of the differences between a face-to-face conversation and a digital conversation? What would be some of the differences between face-to-face, because we've been having conversation for years, but now we've got a device that can be used. What would be some of the differences between face-to-face and digital? Yeah.
No signals, no expression.
Okay, so a disadvantage is harder to read expression, right? Yep. Okay, online you can be anonymous, so obviously that emboldens people to give their opinion. Okay, yeah, you can have multiple streams of conversation going. Okay, we're going to see that in a moment, and that really gets your brain going because it's threaded, but there's everyone's like on their own story.
I'm sorry for going on this stage. There's a better record.
That's all. See, I knew we're like twins separated at birth. Okay, that's a great one. One of the big benefits about online conversation is there is an artifact that remains. And that is very powerful, as we'll see, because that artifact allows you to revisit the learning. And from conversation, we can go to the pedagogy of correction. And you can take that same artifact and move it through and now relook at it. When we have this chat, we might video it, but invariably, who's going to rewatch that thing? You could. Or if there is no video, it's gone. And so a very powerful benefit of online is it has artifacts. So those are some of the benefits of an online conversation. Anonymity, which was mentioned. Temporal gap. That's quite important. What that means is, if I come to you, let me do this. What is the answer? 27 times 14. 41. 27 times 14 is 41. Times, sorry. Yeah, times.
No, that's...
Yeah, exactly. The point is, if I'd given him that same question online, he would have had time to think about it, whether he used his calculator or not. Temporal gap is very powerful because it gives me a space to think. and it makes it less threatening. So if I ask you something, you have got that space. When you're face to face and I say, so what do you think the answer to this is? Or why is that your opinion? You're like, I remember when I started lecturing, it was my biggest freak out. I thought, what happens? You're in this lecture theatre and a student puts up their hand and says, what, blah, 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 and you go, temporal gap. You feel you've got to answer straight away, and so it gives you that. It introduces a great element of chaos, which we will see later, which can be very powerful. And the last one, which we mentioned, it allows you to have a record of the conversation. So, conversation is a pedagogy. It's about explaining, it's about leading, it's about listening, and it's about convincing. And if our students can be involved with that, they develop all these amazing skills. I love this one, humility. It's important to learn that, because that's where learning happens. Risk-taking. Students are more prepared to take risks in online conversations than they ever are in face-to-face. And so these are some of the things that we'll see. So, there are lots of cool tools to have conversations with. You can use WhatsApp. HipChat's great. You can even go to Facebook. You can set up a Facebook group. I'm sure some of you are using WhatsApp or Edmodo or whatever it may be. I'm going to show you one that's really quick and easy. Again, that's part of my goal, is to show you something in like 5 minutes that you can actually do like that. So, this one is going to illustrate spontaneous conversation. Okay, so this is going to be unscripted. It's going to be loosely, if not nothing, controlled. So, the reason I want to show you this is you use conversation in different ways. So sometimes when I'm having a conversation with my students and I put them all into a space, I may let them do whatever they want, but in terms of the content, I try and control where it goes. It's supervised. So I put out a question, they answer it, and if they go off track, I bring them back. So we're going to sit in this area here where it's just like free for all. So it's going to get messy. There could be people that are hurt, but so be it. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. So don't do anything until I tell you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into, I'm going to use, we could make it totally chaotic, but actually I'm going to put you into 2 groups, just so we don't have 20 in one, but it does work with 20. I've just done it with my honors class a week ago, and there were 20 or 30 of them, and me taking them all on was just, I just love it. It's like real spark. It's like, an hour later. So anyway, we'll split you into 2, but it's going to be as intense. Okay, but now what I'm going to do before you go anywhere, we are going to have a debate. And the debate is whether technology is actually good. It's for kids in general. Okay, your own kids, any kids. Is technology good for them? Now, I'm not saying for a 2-year-old or whatever, but I don't care. Is it good for kids to have this level of access to technology? And obviously there's 2 views for this. So I'm going to make you a proposer or an opposer. So you're going to take a stand here. Right. Now what you're going to do is we're going to use this thing called tlk.io. It's a little website. Why I love it is just like no frills, no fuss, nothing. You set up a chat room in a microsecond and you leave it and you go away, walk away. No, so WhatsApp's cool, but you've got to get everyone's phone numbers and drama and whatever. This is like just get going straight away, 4 seconds. Okay, right, are we still friends? Okay, are you convinced for, or who was the winner, do you think? It can lead to superficial thinking, says Sue, but on that side, Shelley also says they can become virtually social. The world of information is always available. What a beautiful final comment by Shelley. Okay, very quickly, just to finish off the pedagogy of conversation. There are only 3 ways to end a sentence in English. 2 are final. Do use the one that encourages learning. So basically every sentence has to either finish with a full stop, an exclamation mark, or a question mark. I heard about a new one, some guy tried to invent a combination of those 2. It's got some funny name, but didn't go down so well. It's like when you're asking a question, but it's rhetorical. Do you think I'm stupid? And it was like an extra question mark or something. But man, who needs that? The point is, questions are such an amazing way of activating learning. But you probably like me, you stand in the front of your class and you say, any questions? And then my next line is, I tell you what, imagine that you're in the exam and you would like to ask me something, but now it's too late. Ask me that now. You've got to have something. So I say, oh, well, I'll ask you a question, because if you've got none, you must know the answer. Okay, obviously being facetious, but the bottom line is they feel threatened. And when you go online, all of a sudden you do open up opportunities to ask questions. We looked at that Menti thing earlier. You can use that for asking questions as well, and you can engage in conversation too. It's also a great tool if you don't want to just put like cloud tags. You can actually use it to ask questions as well.